Welcome to the inaugural Global Annual Summit of the Private Wealth Institute. My name is Sam Blattis. If everyone could, just for the next couple hours, kindly switch your phones onto silent and laser focus in on what you're going to hear today. I think you're going to find there's going to be some delicious kind of compressed knowledge and condensed insights that you're going to find in today's forum, focused on shifts in private wealth issues, trends, the rise of entrepreneurs plugging and playing into the private wealth space. And simply put, I wanted to introduce the master or the architect of today's wonderful forum in yesterday's evening's events, Mr. Fakhri Ahmadov. So if everyone can just join me. Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first event in Dubai. When we created this event, we were thinking about the audience, who would come, who would not come, who would be interested in the event. But the thing is that after doing, a few years of research, then we found an interesting trend that entrepreneurship is rising at very high speed, and these entrepreneurs are becoming not just money earners, but also giving back their money back to the society. So I want to welcome everyone who has been yesterday with us, and today I want to announce from now maybe that we'll have next event in Paris. Some of you will not be here maybe after a few hours. And please allow me to welcome our guests, Jeremy Hodara, co-founder of Jumia, Dr. Shabeer Nellikode to the panel, and Ayman Sharaiha, co-founder of AlTibbi. It's an honor to welcome you. I think everyone knows already who is who, but I wanted to introduce, starting from the closer side. Dr. Shabeer Nellikode is our well-known doctor in the region, and he has built a sizable firm in the last few years. Now the employee number reached out to more than 1,000. Yeah, please, you can say yourself.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for listening me out. I came from Abu Dhabi, where I'm based out of. I'm basically a neurologist, used to work in England. Been fortunate to be working in this part of the world for the last 12 years. Started coming into this country in 2006. We were trying to actually do something very comprehensive in England, where we wanted to get into the mobile radiology screening program. We've got into a point where we've actually got the approvals and all in place, and then we realized that it was not for us. So that was a moment where we looked at some shift to the markets, and we came into this region. As obviously as many of you guys are exploring to the market, for me, the most impressive market was Dubai. So we looked at opportunities, and I was told that Abu Dhabi is going to be, Dubai is going to be a village in front of Abu Dhabi in the next 10 years. So this is some calculation which I want to do. So what I basically do is I run a chain of hospitals in a place called Abu Dhabi and Al Ain, wherein Abu Dhabi is about 350 beds and in Al Ain it's about 150 beds. We do everything except oncology in these hospitals. Now we're coming up with a cancer hospital in Dubai. We closely employ about 1,800 people, and we're growing. So this is about me and my hospital.
Excellent, thank you very much. And next to us is Jeremy Hodara, who built the first unicorn of Africa. The company market valuation, let's say not valuation, it's more than 1 billion. Jeremy, could you talk about how you have started and briefly describe your activities, please? Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So my name is Jeremy. I'm French. I live in Dubai, and my business is in Africa. I started in 2012, 5 years ago, a company called Jumia. And what we do is in different countries in Africa, in 20 countries in Africa, we build e-commerce companies and internet services for Africans. And the idea and the reason why we did this is that what's happening in Africa is that there is a lot of demand, there is a growing middle class, there are wealthy people, so there is a misconception. The demand is here in Africa. The big challenge that we see in Africa is the supply. It's very difficult to buy products in Africa. There are very few malls, there are very few shops, and it's not changing. Actually, it's not changing. 5 years ago, there were 2 malls in Lagos for 20 million people, and there are still 2 malls in Lagos today. And in parallel, you have a very, very deep internet penetration. You have more people on the internet in Africa than the US population. You have more people on the internet in Nigeria than the French population. So we see this balance with strong demand, very difficult supply of products through brick and mortar, and strong internet penetration. So we built Jumia in 20 countries. We distribute millions of products in Africa. We have our own delivery company because we need to deliver the products ourselves. So in countries like Nigeria, we are doing more deliveries than UPS, FedEx, or DHL, for example. And now we have about 3,000 employees, and we continue to grow in the different countries of Africa.
Excellent, thank you. And we have Ayman Sharaiha, co-founder of AlTibbi. Ayman, you have raised recently $6.5 million for AlTibbi. What is your job there? What are you doing there? What is AlTibbi basically?
So AlTibbi is the largest online healthcare platform in the Middle East. We get around 10 million sessions per month organically, people looking for healthcare information in Arabic. And last year, or 2 years ago actually, we pivoted because advertising revenue in the region is very weak. So we started offering the next step in the healthcare journey, which is telehealth. So now we connect, our job is to convert those visitors on the website to create consultations between them and doctors, local doctors. So our business now has 2 streams, B2C, which is converting those visitors into consultations, and the B2B approach, which is now we are trying to inject ourselves within the healthcare system. So we want to work with insurance companies, corporate companies, and self-insured companies. The funding is basically going to just scaling within the GCC and the Levant where we exist today. And it's basically our job to improve the experience of the patient who is basically looking for quality healthcare but not finding it around her. There's limited access and people are seeking healthcare usually at the time where you have to find the patient at the right time. And this is the challenge that we're facing.
Excellent, thank you. Let's go back to Dr. Shabeer Nellikode. Interestingly enough, you came from India and you built a big hospital group. And why did you choose to become a doctor? And what makes entrepreneurs different than if you go back to see how normal doctors work in hospitals?
Okay, I come from a family of business people. My dad is into steel manufacturing and things like that. So, let's not be very dramatic. What had happened was whenever there was any illness in the family, everybody used to be, helping each other. But I found few of the people were able to help in a little better fashion than the people who just come in for the mental and the financial support. And at that point of time, I really started liking the way doctors used to work with. So that was the time when we actually wanted to become a doctor, and out of a business family, I was the first guy to be moving out of the industrial thing and moving into a doctor. And when you get into a profession, you start liking it. There is a passion which is there. It has to be, it is an infectious passion that used to be. I was blessed with good training and programs like in India and England. So this is one of the major reasons that I got into it. Now, coming from India and setting up something in here, it was also a very interesting story. As I told you, I believe that the Middle East is a place, it has an American-European infrastructure with a mindset which is same as mine. People who come in here, they have a very, very, very infectious passion. There's a lot of persistence. You have people from more than 180 countries coming in, working with the same goal. And I think the rulers of this nation has put up certain facts in place. Somebody wants to do business, you're always welcome here. Somebody wants to do innovative things here, you're always welcome here. I find few of the people, very interesting people who do business in different parts of the world, but they would love to be stationed in the center of the world, wherein, the action is always there. And I think it's partly, I turning out to be an entrepreneur was not because I had the skill sets, but it was just the need of the hour. So we started this, I got into the medical segment by just starting a pharmacy first. We got to know that what are the medicines which are not available in this country. So personally, I've got about 42 medicines registered in this country. Now we started with a small medical center which started doing well because I'm a trained neurologist, and a private neurologist at 2006, 2007 was a rarity. So we had people even coming from Oman because my appointments were always open because it was my own show. So I used to be the nurse, I used to be the doctor, I used to be somebody who was giving the rest of the care. So this is how we grew, and now we stand here. So I think pretty much we're increasing in numbers, and the quality of care that we've been able to give is something which has been appreciated. Few of the people who worked with me when I came into this country has become the CEOs and chairmen of certain departments. So there is a relationship that has been growing, and I think we've been well received by the market, and there is a lot of support that has been established to us. And we would like to thank the people of this country for accepting us.
Very good. Let's move to another Dubai lover. Let's go like this. Jeremy, French entrepreneur. Jeremy, what changed in life after building Jumia? How do your thoughts change after building Jumia? And what do you think about society? Because you follow the trends, what is happening in consumer purchases, something like that. What do you find there? Interesting for us.
So my view is very much biased or driven by what I see in Africa. So that's very specific. I think the way people are consuming in Africa is again something that we underestimate because we always think that we say in the US it's going to be mobile first. In the region, everybody will shop on mobile, etc. But there is a region in the world that is already there, that is much more advanced, and it's there. We think that at some point people will buy more online than in the shop. It's already happening there. If you are in the US, if you are even here in the region or in China, you have the best physical infrastructure, and e-commerce is 15 to 20% of the retail sector. In a region like Africa, by construction, retail will be less as a share of, brick and mortar will be less as a share of retail because online will leapfrog. And so what we see is that we see this behavior of people who have never bought in a modern infrastructure and that used to go and shop in the street that go directly online, which you would expect this to be the behavior of the more, let's say, affluent people. And on the opposite, the more affluent people in the region, they don't need it. And so they keep on traveling, and if you are very affluent and you live in Lagos, you travel to London, you travel to New York, you don't need to buy online because you have other alternatives. So it's very strange because all the cliche we have that online is for the rich people, the street market is for the poor people, everything is turned upside down. The people who are probably a little bit of the middle class, they find a better value proposition, more choice, cheaper online. The affluent people, they travel. And then comes, for example, last year, the crisis. So last year in Nigeria, we had, I think, 2 devaluations. In Egypt, we had 1 devaluation. And there are things that happened that we didn't foresee. For example, the currency in Nigeria was not, you couldn't exchange the currency, so you couldn't travel anymore and use your Nigeria card to buy. And suddenly, several of the rich families and the rich people in Nigeria started to buy online. And we could see this very physically. So we used to sell TV, and for 4 years we were selling the traditional 32-inch TV. And in 1 year, we started to sell tons and tons of 64-inch TV, the massive, massive TV that was clogging the warehouse. We had to buy trucks to deliver 64-inch TV because suddenly the people who didn't need to buy online because they had alternative suddenly were not able to take the money out and decided to spend the money in Naira in their own country. So I think it's very interesting because it's very hard to foresee how things will evolve. You always make plan and you think the more affluent people will buy online, but actually they don't. And then the moment there is a crisis, you think the business will go down, and actually it's the best time ever because people are left with less options. So it's extremely difficult to foresee how things are going.
Do you bet on things or not?
Sorry?
Do you bet on ideas that you have in mind or not?
We don't bet too much. We try to be realistic, but the realistic in Africa is that it's only bets. So the reality is the unexpected is expected in Africa. You know, it's not a surprise that there are surprises. So I see a lot of companies that are starting in Africa, and at the first crisis they get wiped out. There is a crisis every 3 to 4 years in every country in Africa. It cannot come as a surprise. It should be part of the business model to build something that is resilient enough to go through the bad time and that can accelerate in the good time. And so our business is made so that every 4 years something bad will happen in a country. I don't know. Today it's Kenya. They love democracy so much that they make elections every 2 months. Then it will go fine for 4 years. Then in 4 years something else will happen. Last year it was Nigeria and Egypt. Whatever will happen in another year, another country. So we don't make so many bets, but we are prepared for the unexpected. Let's put it that way.
Thank you. Ayman, you came from Jordan, right?
Yeah.
So what keeps you in Jordan? Do you want to move to any city like Dubai or somewhere else, or you want to stay there? And how do you see the future of AlTibbi in this sense?
Are we talking personally or professionally?
Yeah, personally.
So personally, I don't mind moving to Dubai. It has definitely its advantages. The diversity, the quality of life, I like that. And professionally, I think we do have to be in a place like Dubai. So if we talk about the regulatory framework, which is non-existent yet in telemedicine or telehealth, which presents an opportunity and a threat in a way. Dubai was the first emirate or city that actually came up with a telehealth law. So I think it sets a precedent for the region. So if we do follow or comply with such regulations, then we're actually ahead of the curve in other countries. So it's definitely central for doing business. Our biggest market is not Dubai yet, it's Saudi and Egypt. So, but being here is definitely good in terms of acquiring talent that we can't find in Jordan. Jordan it works as a place where we can get developers and product people. So I don't want to say back office support, but it is, in a sense, a big chunk of the business is in Jordan, and it helps with our cost structure. So if we can scale whatever we can in terms of personnel in Jordan, it's good. If we can't, we'll try to get the talent out of Dubai for more sales, marketing, front office, maybe even business intelligence if we can't find.
Interesting. Then if we move to Dr. Shabeer Nellikode and about a bit personal issues and your personal views.
Sure.
You sit with two technology guys. How do you think technology, will it change our behaviors and culture? If you talk about yourself and the next generation, how do you think about that?
I think...
what is positive, what is negative in your view?
I think the only point that I want to make different from the technology guys is that in the 18th century, there's something called as medical doubling time. Medical doubling time is the updation of medical technology. So in the 18th century, it was every 50 years that medicine used to double. So for a certain disease, you will have a new update which used to come every 50 years about something relevant to that disease. But now in this present century, medicine doubles every 73 days. So this is how fast medical doubling is happening. Now, regarding technology, what's happening, see, medicine is one of the most important fields where technology has really played a really important role. Now, I was the first person to install a robotic pharmacy in my hospital in 2013. The whole region never had a robotic dispensing system. Now, why bringing in a robotic dispensing system into a pharmacy where people could, maintain a pharmacy is what we've just proved them wrong. By bringing in a robotic pharmacy system, what we've done is we actually saved the time where the pharmacist has to go search for a particular medicine and then come back. With the prescription, the pharmacist was able to talk more to the patient, saying that these are the ways in which you have to take the medicine, the side effects, the benefits, and allergy reaction. So we could actually allow the pharmacist to spend more time with the patient so that the patient was pretty much happy than the rest of the pharmacies around. So this is how we adapted technology into the everyday living activity of a particular patient who was to come to us. The other thing was the evolving of the electronic medical record, to the hospital management system, to the verticals that it used to maintain. So we got it all integrated. If you ask me, we are we are the first hospitals to be a paperless system. We are not still 100% paperless because due to some regulatory compliances, we are not supposed to be 100% paperless. But I think, as you rightly said, technology has played a real important role in setting up certain things. But as in every field, if technology is not being supplemented by the right people, if it is not productive, I think there is a problem. As compared to any field, there are threats to the medical industry if technology is not being used properly.
Thank you. And the thing you mentioned about very interesting thing, robotics, first in your hospital. There are a lot of stuff happening in the medical industry, saying xenotransplantation, gene editing, something like that. And bioethics has become a very important issue for the 21st century. Do you think it is applicable to this region also, or still culture allows us to navigate through our experiences and religion, everything else, something like that?
Well, I think, see, what we need to understand is that this country has been, in the forefront of adopting technology. You forget about the rest of the things. We've had many centers doing transplantation procedures now, which used to be considered to be very taboo a few years ago. There is a lot of things which are happening, which is beyond my purview to be discussing in this forum. But I think there's a lot of positive trends that has been happening of late, because the region has seemed to be a destination for people who can fly in from 7-hour radius from this region. So there's a lot of patients who are coming in from your Istans, your Uzbekistan, to all these regions. You have a part of Africa coming into it. Now, this region will develop if it is really being framed as a region for education. So now I think, there is a lot of scope for medical education in this region, because any parent would love to have their children getting educated in a very stable environment wherein you get the right amount of teachers and the innovators to come and teach them. So I think that is the scope of the region for the next coming few years. So for us, now we're getting into education. We're planning to set up a medical school in this part of the world, wherein we have established medical schools which are doing extremely well. But the demand for this is getting bigger and better. And we expect that has to be the next trend. The next wave of medicine is not going to be only hospitals. It has to start producing few young scientists and people who will going to be adding further value to the system.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you very much. Jeremy, what do you think about the physical assets as a person who's dealing with a lot of consumers who has interest in technology and also physical assets? So do you think that physical assets are becoming the history for us now? Like, what is your view on that?
So I think there is a difference between the distribution channels and the goods themselves. I think what we see, people want the same thing today and yesterday, a little bit to your point earlier. Everybody, when they want to shop, online or not online, and 100 years ago, or maybe in 100 years, they want to have a lot of choice, the best price and the best service. It doesn't change. It's the same in every country, it's the same for everything. I think we should not make things more complicated than they are. It's choice, price, and convenience. I think the physical distribution channels are changing, definitely. One of our shareholders is Goldman Sachs, another one of our shareholders is AXA. Some of our shareholders are telecommunication companies like MTN and Orange. All those players, they know that in Africa, there will never ever be a world where you buy your insurance in an insurance physical space. If you are in developed countries, at every street corner, you have 3 banks and 1 insurance company. It will never be like that, ever, ever. And for example, you will never buy a plane ticket in a physical travel agency. There are some travel agencies in Africa, but yet people will directly buy online. So I think the way you purchase is going to go online 100% sure. Now the physical asset itself, I mean, has a great future. I mean, look at the price of the iPhone X. People love to touch things. Even when we try to digitalize, it comes back. Look at the music. You know, we try to put all the music online, and now people buy back the big vinyl of the old days. We try to put the things online. They always come back physical. So I think this is changing. What is also changing is the way people buy those physical assets. I think it's very different. If you think in the past, the product lasted a long, long time. So when you buy a car, it was for 20 years. When you buy a TV, it's for 10 years. But you were making this purchase in a very irrational way in the past. You know, you go to 3 car dealers, and the one that has the best sales guy, get a chance to sell you the car. You go to Best Buy, and if the guy has a good incentive, he can make you get the big TV. And then you were stuck with the TV for a long time. Now, maybe the lifetime of the product is shorter because of cycles and everything, but the way people prepare the purchase is amazingly more rational. I mean, you see, and that's our job, we observe people, looking for information for weeks, for months. They watch hours of video on YouTube. They read for tons and tons of comments, and they look for influencers, and they look for facts. And now when you buy those kind of products, you are a lot more informed than you used to be in the past. So it's funny to see the life of the product being shortened, but the rationality you put into purchasing it being much stronger than in the past.
And do you separate something like functionality versus design of the product when it comes to physical products? And how it looks like a wealthy person or, let's say, middle class, do they differentiate in this functionality versus design?
I'm personally surprised to see how people are good at figuring out the functionalities and the quality and what's inside the box versus the design, actually. And I have to say, I don't know why. We sell 100 of different types of phones, and we know for a fact, because we do it every day, that some phones have much better speed or battery or whatever specs, and they fly, and people can. And it's not a question of being wealthy or not wealthy. It has nothing to do with that, but somehow people figure out very fast what is good and what is not good. It's very surprising, and you can still make a phone with some glitter at the back and some nice specs. If it's not good, it's not good. What is maybe a bit different is the expectations in the quality of the service, I think. So it's not about the product, it's about the service. And again, surprisingly, I think the middle class has more expectations than the most affluent people in Africa. It's very surprising. When you try to sell a product to affluent people in our region, they have a lot of experience because they have lived in the US, they have lived in Europe, so they know what to expect, and so the level of trust is quite high. Today, if you order on Amazon and your product is not delivered tomorrow, you know it's going to come the day after tomorrow. You don't freak out, and you wait. It's the same in Africa. People know it's online. There may be one day delay. It's okay. For the more middle class people, it's a very new way of buying. It's a lot of money for them, and so the trust is very low. So the level of expectations is much higher, and somehow we have to deliver probably an even better service for the middle class than for the affluent people, and we have to deliver the same day or the next day. Otherwise, people will think it's a scam, and they will cancel, and they will scream on the internet and everything. So I think there is also a misconception that somehow, the most affluent people need an amazing service in a limousine, and the middle class can wait for 3 weeks to receive their products. In real life, we don't see that at all.
Excellent. Ayman, what do you think about Arab consumers in culture context? Jeremy brought a lot of insights from African consumers. Do you think Arab consumers are different than any part of the world when it comes to online shopping, digital transactions, even medical services as you work with?
Yes. There's a bit of a difference between the consumer in the GCC and the consumer in Egypt, for example.
Even like that.
In Egypt, we see a lot of abuse, but they take advantage of the service. It's not, whatever is there, they become smarter than you in knowing your product. And whatever loophole that you have in the service, they will find it and they will abuse it. In the GCC, they'll use it, they're comfortable with it, they'll keep it, they don't mind. So retention is usually higher in places like Saudi Arabia. But in Egypt, the lifetime value of the customer is very short. So, for example, we offer a 1-day free trial for people who want to try out the service, because telehealth is something new and we want people to experience it so they can become convinced in it. In Egypt, in the 1-day free trial, you have 90% of our calls in the free trial, and then they all leave. I mean, you have 1 or 2 people staying past, and these guys probably forgot about it. So it's very tough to actually get value for money in places like Egypt, but then it forces you to create a better product. It forces you to get involved in the next step in the patient's journey. So now he made a call, you know that the patient has to do one of 5 things, for example, either go to the pharmacy, go visit his specialist, go do a medical x-ray. So if we get involved in the next steps, then we can increase the retention of the user and extend the lifetime. In terms of cultural cultural concerns, yes, there's a bit less awareness and sophistication, unlike, I guess, e-commerce, because this is something very new, and they're willing to experiment with it at the beginning. But in terms of educating the user what telehealth is and what are the advantages of telehealth, especially on the B2B side, by the way, they still think that the doctor has to come and touch you to basically, in a professional way, obviously, but to basically, diagnose you. When in fact, through the medical history, through vital signs, remote monitoring, and whatever question and answer the doctor can ask you, they can pretty much diagnose a lot of the clinical scenarios that they come across. So it's still a barrier, but we're working on it in terms of awareness. And I think at some point when it picks up, acquisition becomes easier.
Good, thank you. Is there any question from the audience? No questions, so I should ask one more. Then, Dr. Nellikode, let's come to you about your views about the future of entrepreneurship. Is there anything that you felt in the past, like there is a pattern, entrepreneurship changed its mode or purpose, something like Mark Zuckerberg gave billions to philanthropy, and some others think about impact investing, some others get strength in family businesses. What do you think about that? Is there any trend and pattern that you feel in your life or you have observed in the past?
I think I've always, as a disciplined person, I've always believed that giving is something which has to be kept within yourself. I just wanted to point out a few things, the way entrepreneurship was changing in me. Now, as I rightly said, I'm just a qualified doctor. I don't have any management things to manage, but it's just that the need of the hour made me to become an entrepreneur, and that's how things goes. Now, in everybody's life, there are outcomes which make you look valuable. In me, I mean, I am sure that you all have known about the founder of Apple, Steve Jobs. One of the most sensitive things that had happened to him was his illness. So he had to undergo a particular surgery, which is called the Whipple's procedure, which normally takes about 10 to 12 hours to be done. So we've done 9 of those surgeries in my hospital. So at certain points of time, the pinnacle of success is not only on making money, the pinnacle of success is doing something which is very difficult, but you still do it. So we all started talking about Mark Zuckerberg when he started making it big. I mean, there are a lot of people who give away wealth, but with there's no news about it. And the way in which entrepreneurship have changed over years, so there's an ecosystem which works here. Now we have a lot of people who are talking about new businesses which was unknown to us a decade ago. So I personally wish that a medical content company, for example, a medical search company, a medical information company has got a lot of potential because everybody wants to be updated. I mean, we've talked about the iPhone X to the way in which iPhone has updated their technology and people would want to buy it. In the same way, there is a lot of synergy that can happen. I think this whole region is getting into a different mode, the startup mode to the entrepreneurship to the ecosystems, the knowledge hub. There is a lot of work happening. And what I want to say is that this country has got way more infrastructure than they need. It's got all the right ingredients of people to be here. It's just the mindset which is really being adaptive. And I don't think so there is any more a value called as survival of the fittest. It's the survival of the people who can adapt. And I think, we have people from all walks of life, different parts of the world, coming in and thinking of new ways of doing businesses. And that is how things are.
Excellent. Jeremy, my question is about what is your next venture? Is it Jumia or something else that we don't know?
It's Jumia. The answer is simple. No, I mean, somehow I think I'm fortunate enough to only have a few % of my company. And I think it makes a big difference with other entrepreneurs that I know, friends, etc., who actually are kind of confusing their own personal exit with the company future. I'm the CEO of the company. My only objective is that Jumia is here in 50 years. I mean, that's my only objective, and I don't care. It's not that I don't care, but it doesn't change my strategy, it doesn't change the way I work. If I have a change of shareholder, if we have to do an IPO, if one day Amazon or Alibaba wants to acquire us, I mean, it doesn't matter. At some point, we have customers, we have a business model, we have a name, and we're going to continue. And I think Jumia, my job is to make Jumia here in 50 years, whatever happens in terms of my shareholder, my funding, my personal whatever. And so it's a very easy question and very easy decision. If I had 99% of my company, probably that would be different for me. And I'm saying it very seriously. You don't confuse your personal exit and your personal fate with your company destiny, and that makes it simpler for me.
Same question to Ayman. Ayman, what do you think about AlTibbi about that? Do you wanna stay the firm, acquire new ventures, or you wanna build something as like serial entrepreneur or something like that?
So AlTibbi is actually my third. Well, I joined AlTibbi as a co-founder once it pivoted into telehealth. I actually wasn't there at the very beginning, but once they realized they can't do content anymore and they wanted to pivot, that's where they called me in and I joined. I think we're just scratching the surface. I think AlTibbi has great potential, and I think for the next 5 years at least, I'll still be doing AlTibbi. One of the biggest reasons why is that I think the return on investment in the Middle East, at least return on the effort that you put in, is not realized like in the US. You can't build something and see it to fruition or see it scale in 1 or 2 years. Here you have to wait at least 5 years, or if not 7 years, to see something that is actually shaping up to be impactful as you want it to be. The time it takes to where you want to be is a lot longer than other parts of the world. There's still a lot of infrastructure challenges, education that needs to be done. So I don't see myself going anywhere. And telehealth, even worldwide, is still something fairly new. So it's really just the beginning now.
Thank you very much. We came to the end of the panel. If there is any question, we can ask. Oh, okay. We have coming from a microphone, please.
I think it's small enough for morning, Jeremy. I'd like to congratulate you. I saw you at the Africa Forum a couple of weeks ago here. I'm interested to ask you just one very simple question. Your business model, which currently pertains to Africa, is that a replicable model somewhere else outside of the continent of Africa? And in particular, when you're mentioning a potential exit, be it to the Alibabas or the Amazons, why aren't they currently in Africa? Why are you operating in a non-saturated market as yet? Do they not see the potential that you've seen in Africa?
Thank you. So I think it's two different questions, actually. I think the first one, is it a replicable business model? Yes and no. I mean, selling products online is nothing like a secret formula. You know, again, you go in China, you go in the US, you go in Argentina, you go to the UK. Somehow you have a website. What people are looking for is the same. They want a lot of choice. Again, they want to have the best price. They click on a product, they put it in a basket, they check out. So is it different in Africa? No. But in reality, it's also very different in the way we execute it. And it has nothing to do with the e-commerce you know everywhere in the world. We do 99% of our business with cash on delivery, for example. So people do not pay online, they pay when they see the product. 100% of the people who order, they call us because they want to speak to someone on the phone. It's a millions of small details. The products are hard to find in the countries. So for example, if you do business, e-commerce in a lot of places of the world, you have access to all the products. Our battle is to find products, etc., etc. So I think it's replicable and not replicable, but probably the best, the closest model to us is what's happening in China and India. I think to start to answer your second question. What's happening in terms of internet and e-commerce in the Western world is too different. It has nothing to do the way people consume, the way people can go to shops, the website is very different. What Alibaba as a group or what Flipkart and Amazon are doing in India is very close because the challenges they face in terms of the infrastructures, in terms of their ecosystem is much closer. We don't have a post office. Amazon doesn't know how to deliver a package. Amazon is the best in the world in terms of warehouse, for example. They have never delivered a package themselves. They have never done it in any country of the world except India now. Alibaba, Amazon in India, Flipkart, they know how to bring a package from one place to another. So I think the closest region is China, definitely. That brings to your second question. Why are they not in Africa? I mean, first, I'm glad they are not here. Second, I think, you know, I don't know, it's a question of cost and opportunity. If you are Amazon, you can grow your market share in the US by 1% against Walmart. It's probably easier and you make more money than starting Africa. You realize that you failed to enter China. It's a big challenge. You are number 2 in India. You have Alibaba that is going in Indonesia and Thailand. So, you know, I think there, you know, you rank opportunities and you can go in Nigeria and start to deliver package yourself. It's not sure. Then if you're Alibaba, it's a little bit the same challenge for Alibaba. Alibaba just started to enter Southeast Asia this year, and they're still looking in their regional network. So for us, the longest they think Africa is dangerous and it's poor and it's complicated, the better, I would say. But they will come one day. They will come one day. I mean, but look, Amazon came here in the region acquiring Souk because they didn't know how to make a website from right to left. So sometimes, you know, you don't know. I think it's our job is to make sure the barriers to the entry are high, and I think the more people think it's complicated, the better. Everybody is asking me, you know, is it a challenge that people don't prepay and don't have a credit card? It's a blessing for us. You know, the day we have a post office, the day people have a credit card, the day you have digital agencies, the day you have electricity and internet works well, then it's going to be very easy to do business. So for us, the more complicated, the better.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our fellow panelists. Thank you for coming.